is this position even for you? I think a lot of the times as human beings, we like to think like, oh, I'm an all-star. I don't want to suck, ultimately. And that's true human nature. Is it too much pressure? Is it really a broken problem? Is it a system error?
We did overstaff based on what the leadership team was telling us that, hey, we needed more people.
No, wait, I just don't understand how to do this. Like, explain to me how.
How do you identify whether it's a people issue, a process issue, or something totally different? How do you even figure that out? Welcome to the Owner Mindset Podcast. I'm Anthony Luna, the CEO of Coastline Equity, and your host of this podcast. Today, we're going to be exploring a little bit of the behind the scenes of our HR department, hiring, onboarding, which is led by my talented wife and business partner, Lauren Luna, who is a licensed clinical social worker. So Lauren, I'd love to have you briefly introduce yourself for our audience and share a little bit about how you've taken your experience in the social work field and brought it to Coastline Equity in the business world.
Absolutely. So my name is Lauren Luna. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've been studying that for the last 10 years of my life and really focusing on making sure I'm understanding how human interaction works, how we can really begin to function as human beings and function within one another. And so just really leveraging all of that I've learned in all my experience in the last 10 years to really how to look at Coastline as the client and really begin to foster all of these skills overall. So I feel like that's been what I've been working on.
You mentioned that you see Coastline as your client now today. So of the 10 years you've been practicing in social work and youth development, 7 of that, or 8, almost 8 of that has been with Coastline Equity. Why don't you talk about that process of figuring out this new business client rather than an individual child or family client?
Definitely. I think it goes back to, I'm not sure if every program has it, but at USC, they talk about a macro program and really looking at the system as a whole. So I started to look at Coastline as the system, right? It's a system that people work in, interact with, and really function in. So by being able to take a step back and really look at Coastline Equity as a system and what's working, what's not working, what is the data showing, what are the people telling us, and looking at everything overall, it really helped me understand Coastline Equity as a whole and really helped me see it in the bigger picture instead of just focusing in one department or one area. So I really feel like that lens really gave me a bigger outlook of how Coastline Equity was functioning.
So when you started your graduate program, did you ever expect to be running a business with your husband?
Definitely not. I really love the in-person interaction with working with youth and working with families. But I quickly found that the impact I can make at Coastline Equity, I was still impacting families of our teams, right? They go home depending on how their day was. They also bring forth what to their kids, who they are when they get home. I could also make an impact in the community. I was able to provide services, again, to the community and to different nonprofits. I think it definitely shifted when I moved from direct service to indirect service, what it feels like. But it's still been a lot of fun and still a lot of learning. So
What does that mean? Quickly, you mentioned indirect service and direct service. What does that mean when you're working in the school district?
So direct service is directly working with the client, right? Or directly working with the individual who needs services. Indirect service would be like, say they had a student who needed services, but I started to work with the family, or I started working with the education system, or I started to work with everything around it, would be an indirect service to still service the client, but it's not directly towards the client. So I feel like Coastline is kind of that indirect service where I'm still working with individuals. It's still working with the human component, just not directly with the actual problems of the day-to-day or the actual crisis the individual is going through.
Crises are quite different in property management than in mental health, but I get what you're saying. And I guess I want to take it back there is, as we started to grow Coastline Equity together and started to look at what we needed to achieve the goals that we were setting forward for the company, I think you and I both realized people were the most important element of that formula. The people we hired at Coastline Equity, the people we retained at Coastline Equity were the most important part of cultivating that culture. How did you start to understand and ideate around building that culture and finding the right people?
I think for me, it's really been that when we work in a people business or we live in a people where people are the most important thing. It's It's the human interaction. It's the way we conversate. It's the way that we give advice. It's the way that we give direction. The way that all of those things really matter in the way that we build a relationship. And I think overall, that was always in the back of my mind when building anything new was how am I fostering this relationship? How am I fostering this dynamic to really be successful, right? We're planting the soil, making sure we're watering it, we're making sure the seed is growing. So for me, it was really important that human element. I think that human element makes Coastline Equity and who it is today.
And I guess as you start to talk about understanding that human element, how did you go about, maybe explain to the listener, how did you go about diagnosing or understanding the company's needs?
Definitely. So in the mental health world, we'd say we do a needs assessment. Here at Coastline Equity, it's kind of similar, right? I've met with every stakeholder, starting with you and then kind of the leadership team, the team, and even the data in itself is really getting a full picture of what everyone thought the needs were, where they felt we could grow, where they felt the holes were, what we were successful at. It really started to be like putting the puzzle together. How can I put all the pieces together to really understand Coastline Equity as a whole, right? As a whole system, because all of those stakeholders played a role. We also looked at data from vendors and from clients and really understanding everything. And it wasn't until then that I started to understand, okay, everyone has a need and where do they overlap? Everyone was trying to fill the holes in their own way. And I think that really understanding at the higher level gave us the opportunity to be able to fix the core of the issue, as we like to call it.
Why don't you talk about that? So you and I probably have a different approach, or I know you have a different approach to finding the core issue. Why don't you describe what that means to you, kind of just of identifying the core issue?
Definitely. A core of an issue to me is really understanding deeper of what somebody's trying to explain. I feel like everyone has their own way of dealing with conflict and dealing with issues and dealing with problems, right? We're all individuals. We all have different ways of dealing, right? So for me, it was really hearing what somebody was saying and looking deeper. Like somebody's frustrated, but why? What is that underlying feature? Is it too much pressure? Is it really a broken problem? Is it a system error? Is it they're not able to use the system, like the software? So really understanding in the deeper level where frustration and anger and even just, I feel like sometimes it was anxiety for people and just being able to get to the core of that. Yes, sometimes it was just that mere face, like a people issue, but really at its core was a system issue, right? We were able to get to the deeper parts of that and understand that, hey, we have a system problem and we need to be able to fix that system, that SOP, whether it was, or the operating system, and it fixed everyone's issue. So for me, it was that, really understanding that.
I think for many of our listeners, they're entrepreneurs themselves, they own businesses, they own a portfolio, and maybe they're just starting to build out that system, or they have an existing system and they don't realize it's broken. How do you identify whether it's a people issue, a process issue, or something totally different? How do you even figure that out?
I think for me, it was really understanding, again, when we have 3 or 4 star employees, which we know are invested in the company, we know that they want to do what's right, they want to, again, help Coastline succeed, but the thing keeps dropping, right? The ball keeps falling at different various points of the same procedure. So say we're doing a move out and there's something broken in between and everyone drops the ball at a different place. To me, that would be a system issue, right? We have an SOP issue because there's something that somebody knows how to do a little bit further than the other. However, our employees, I think, don't want to fail. Naturally, as human beings, we don't want to fail at something. We want to do the best that we can. So for me, it's looking at that as a whole picture is we see that we have these employees who want to succeed, who want to do what's right, who want to do and get to the goals that we set for the quarter, and really understanding that we've not given them all the information they need to succeed. And so to me, it's really understanding that. Now, on the opposite end is how do I know if I have a people issue is really if that employee, like you've walked them through that step over and over again, you've documented it, you've showed them how to do it, and then they keep dropping the ball because they just don't want to do it, then I feel like that's where you can distinguish between a people issue.
How do you know the difference? I guess, so I think for me and for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's not always an easy answer to know whether it's a people issue of somebody that doesn't want to do it or they're intentionally breaking the system, or a process issue. And I think you said something that made me wonder, what if it's neither? What if it's like a training issue? If the process breaks down in a different place for different people, is that just a training issue?
But at that point, you could say it's still a process issue, right? Because you haven't done the full way through of a process. Part of the process is not only writing it, it's also teaching it, training it, living it, right? It's all of those components. And the training issue, then I have not only a broken process, but a supervisor who's not training. And that's on me to say, hey, we need to step in and train the trainer almost, train the supervisor to be able to move forward and train their employees or their team members underneath them.
How do you know which is the answer? Is it people or is it process?
I think when you've set a clear, transparent process, and you've really, again, been able to document, train, and your team members can say it back to you, and they can become the trainer, then you know it's a people issue, right? There's a deviation in process. But if your team member or your employee can't even tell you the process back, then I feel like that's where there's a break, because everyone's doing it in their own manner, the best way they think possible, because it's unclear to them.
What does that mean to have a transparent process? What does that look like?
I think there's a process where it lives individually. We have one place where all processes live. We all understand what it is from A to Z, and nobody skips B and D and E, right? It's always A to Z no matter what. And so being able to understand that's how things go, right? No matter what this is, for move out, we always go A to D. And then after move out to move in, we go from D to L, and just being able to do that.
Okay. So I think once most companies have those processes dialed in, or a real estate investor has their portfolio dialed in with their processes and their teams all aligned, I think it becomes clear to me that it's about actions, it's about goals, and it's about those milestones. And as a real estate investor is looking to expand their portfolio, or an entrepreneur is looking to grow their business, it's always about, okay, is my customer being taken care of the right way? Are my processes being followed? Are we innovating in the right areas? But I guess my next question is, as we get those goals within the company, how do we keep the company aligned to those goals and where the company's headed long term?
I think, again, goes back to that transparency piece, right? People want to feel part of something. They want to feel part of the team. They want to feel a part of the goal setting, a part of the goals. What am I striving to? Why am I doing that? Give me the why. Why do I want to do this for you, right? It's always about the bigger picture. I think as individuals, we want to understand how this impacts, or how what I'm doing is meaningful. Again, we spend a majority of our time, team members spend the majority of their time here with us, more than they probably do at home in a day. And really, so there needs to be a motivation of why. Why do I do this? What do I bring? And for everyone, there's a different reason, right? Some people do it like, hey, I just really need an income. Some people are like, no, I really want to give back to the tenants. No, I really want to do what's right for my client. I want to give back to the community. Whatever their why is, they really want to find a tie to that. And I think that is the important piece of hitting those milestones, is when we start to give people the why, and understanding that, hey, you're a part of this team and you're important, and here's the goal, and this is why we're going to get here, and this is why we're going to do it. I feel like people are really invested in hitting those milestones, right? And again, it goes back to the majority of people don't. We were at a conference that said that we don't want to suck, ultimately. And that's true human nature. We want to do what we're good at. We want to do what we're best at, and we want to succeed. So I think really focusing on that and understanding that as human beings, we always want to see the best. We want to do the best that we can.
What do you tell the entrepreneur that maybe hasn't come to that realization yet? The entrepreneur who still thinks they have to do it all, or nobody can do it as well as they can. How do you coach that entrepreneur as an HR professional, or as a business social worker in some respect?
Definitely. I think it's been a really interesting ride of learning that and understanding that. I think just being able to say, like, yeah, you can do all 10 tasks, but when you have to do the 10 tasks, can you do them all at the best of your ability? Or can you eliminate 5 because somebody can do them at 85% that you can? Even if it's that, say that on the low end, it's 85%. Those 5 tasks are now getting done at 85%, where if you were doing them all 10, what would be the capabilities that you would be able to do them?
Something's going to give. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's most entrepreneurs, as they start to get to a certain scale, they start to lose track of those things that they used to be great at and they haven't delegated very well. And I've been there myself. I think most entrepreneurs, as they grow their business, are there more than once as they start to figure out that process. Going back to setting goals, I want to maybe have you share some times where we've done a really good job as a company setting really clear, actionable goals that the team's super excited about and aligned with, and maybe an example of a time where the goals fell short or it wasn't clear to the team where we are going.
Definitely. I think when we've set goals and really been able to set them as a leadership team and then really explain them to the team and really set and have them set goals aligned with that, we've been really successful at reaching them, right? When we all understand what the goal is, then it's easier to trickle down in that sense. The leadership team understands where we are, the middle managers, and even our team members, right? But when we're unclear at the top of, hey, yeah, that goal's set, but I don't really understand it, or I understand it to be this way, and then this person understands it to be a different way, we kind of get these blurred lines of how we're going to reach there because everyone has their own direction of getting there. And I think that's where we've got lost in the past, is everyone has the same mentality of getting to the goal. They just don't have right milestones to getting there or the right path because everyone thinks, hey, I understood it this way, somebody else understood it a different way, and it's just been unclear. I think that's really where transparency plays a role. Also, I think when we've hit kind of 6 weeks into our quarter and said like, oh, we set the wrong goal, that's also thrown our team for a whirlwind. And I think that's hard when somebody spent the quarter kind of working towards something and then halfway in we're like, oh no, we set the wrong rock or we need to shift. That's also been a hard transition, I think, for a team to really understand is like, wait, what happens to everything I just worked on?
Yeah. It feels like it was all a waste. And then why do I want to keep contributing to these big giant goals if I don't even know if we're going to stay on these goals long term? Another area I want to kind of explore for our listeners is really around, beyond the needs assessment of the company, the needs assessment of the team, identifying areas of opportunity for individual team members. How have we as a company been most successful and how have you guided that process?
I think this is an interesting question. I think we've really grown into it. I think coming into Coastline Equity in 2022, when we were first buying it, we all had different perspectives, right? When I met with you, you had one perspective as a CEO of like, hey, I want to really be team member first. I want to make sure they feel worthwhile. Then I met with the leadership team and their assessments of what was needed was like, no, we just need more people. It's too much work. I need more team members. And then really hearing the team was like, no, wait, I just don't understand how to do this. Like, explain to me how. And then the last piece was really the data. I think looking at where they all kind of overlapped and how to understand that, I think that really helped me understand where the needs were and what was going on and understanding how to really start to impact that, the company in general.
You mentioned a really interesting point and kind of, our evolution as business owners. We came in 2017 as partners with George Mayer and then grew the business with George, then, finished buying George's shares in 2022. You're right. It was a big pivot. It was a big change. And I think you're right that there was some misalignment within the leadership team of where we were headed. Kind of looking back after we've realized, we did overstaff based on what the leadership team was telling us that, hey, we needed more people. We're now a smaller team, a little bit more agile. What pros and cons or what benefits and issues have come up since that restructuring this year?
I think it really gave us, again, going back to that core issue, is we tried to, for a long time, put the easy fix in, right? Let's find the fast, easy fix so we can keep going, keep growing, keep moving. And what we find is sometimes we need to slow down and say, hey, no, wait, we don't really need all of that. We need to just heal correctly and start to move forward in that direction. So I think this new team really gives us that implementation of, hey, we're no longer going to put these weird little band-aids on issues and really going to deal with them at its core. And when we hear about it, it's like, okay, let's look at it from the whole picture instead of that one department or that one area. So I feel like this transition over the last almost 2 years has really helped us gain perspective in how we can become still and stay agile and stay at the forefront of our business and property management.
So another area I think would be important for us to kind of explore with the listener is around building a high performance team. We talked about growing the team in this really, really large organization. Last couple of years, we've been scaling that down and making it more intentional, more with that pod system. How do you think we approach, or how do you envision approaching that high performance team and hiring the right people? Where do you think you have the most insights to share with the listener?
I feel like there's two different answers. Hiring is its own beast versus our current team and making sure that they're high performers and really performing. On their internal team, making sure they're high performers and they fit and they're growing and they feel bought in. I feel like it's really important to make sure that we're listening to what it is that they need, right? It's using those quarterly conversations as their true coaching that they're meant to be, of where do you see yourself in the next 90 days? Where do you want to be in the next year, in the next 3 years? And really helping that team member grow into that position, and really using those coaching opportunities to coach and to next level, again, our existing team, and making sure that they're fitting that. On the opposite end, when we're talking about hiring and making sure that we're hiring the right person and hiring for the right position and the right person for the right seat, as we like to say in EOS, we're really looking at to see if you fit our core values. Is this position even for you? I think a lot of the times as human beings, we like to think like, oh, I'm an all-star at accounting, but really internally we hate doing numbers. And again, we really leverage using an assessment that assesses, hey, as much as you're great at doing numbers, do you really enjoy doing those numbers? And there's no way to bias that. So really making sure that we're intentional with our behavior assessment and understanding that this position is for you, first of all, and then in our initial interview, making sure that you fit our core values and fit who we are, and you really have that motivation to be a part of Coastline Equity.
So you mentioned something about helping somebody grow in those quarterly conversations and all the coaching you do with them. What about when you've coached somebody out of your business? You've coached them to a point where they've come to realize maybe there's another opportunity or better opportunity outside of the company. I think it's probably a really timely question, because we came in this morning and found out one of our team members had a great opportunity to grow outside of Coastline Equity. He's going to move on to an exciting next part of his career. As an entrepreneur and a business owner, how does that affect you as the business owner versus you as the social worker to the company?
Definitely. I think it's a bittersweet moment on both fronts, right? Especially working directly with this individual, I feel like it was a coaching opportunity, and I got the opportunity to really coach this person past a lot of the barriers that they tend to put up. We as people tend to put up ourselves, right? We tend to hold ourselves back, or no, I'm not capable of doing that, or hey, I want this, I just don't know how to get there. And so for me, on the HR social work perspective, it's really a bittersweet moment of like, hey, we've helped somebody personal. It goes back to that indirect service of growing, where they can now provide for their family something new or something different, and they can go on and teach, again, our Coastline Equity way to a whole new different system and a whole new different company. And I think that in itself is amazing, right? We've not only impacted our own company and our own community in the last however long they've been with us, but they're also able to take that forward and pay it forward. As Coastline Equity and as a business, it's a hard hit, right? When you lose one of those all-star players where you invested so much in them and you really love what they do and bring to the company. But I think it also says a lot, again, about the company and who we are and how much we care about people, and we care about the success of somebody and the success of their family. So
Anthony A. Luna is the CEO of Coastline Equity Property Management, based in Southern California. As a respected Forbes and Fast Company contributor, Anthony shares insights that help property management professionals excel while giving back to their communities. His upcoming book, Property Management Excellence, will be available in 2025 on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores worldwide.